supper, and she refused to move. And basically, it was at that point that I had to, as the house mother, had to now drag her into the home. She was kicking and screaming and saying, "But she promised me, she promised me, she promised me." And I'll never forget her absolute anger at the fact that Mom had promised her she was coming to visit her. And yet at 8 o'clock at night, she hadn't appeared. And there I sat trying to pacify her and trying to make things better for her. And I remember putting her to sleep. Eventually, she just fell asleep on me in absolute exhaustion of crying. And then I put her to bed. And I went to my bedroom at that time, and I just lay on my bed and I said, "God, this can't be right. It's not this girl that needs help. It's the mother." And there and then I kind of made a commitment that if I can bring any change to this kind of situation, it would be that children should not land up in children's homes. And then over and above that, only years later did I discover there had been abuse there. And I was suspicious of some things, but I'm 17, I'm green, know nothing about abuse, and didn't know. And so that was horrific for me, where there was indication that I wish I had told Monica about this, and somebody that had been there was writing. And so then Basil and I we'd met and we got married, and we had a real passion to work with people and families and children, and particularly families because of these kind of things that happened. We landed up in 1980, being at Britannia in the 85, when we actually moved there permanently. And we were really inundated with huge issues, both at this center that we were working with 140 hostel girls who were in there from the community, and had really been exposed to terrible things and abuse, and the parents wanted to keep them there for safety. And there was a lot of hostility and fighting in the community because of the whole pre sort of release of Nelson Mandela, being sort of in the 90s at that stage. Yeah. And so we were really exposed to that. And for the first time I was ever exposed to sort of the incredible life of young girls and children, and particularly women. And that really kind of got us really thinking. And we had a little Bible study group at home. And I remember there were days where I know Baz and I were like lying on the floor crying, and we kept saying, "God, what can we do about this? What can we do about this?" And it was like God said, "What is in your hand?" Well, we had some rooms and we had a caravan and things like that. And we just started using what we had by opening up these rooms there for these women and children. And soon there was about 11 people in the living there, plus the 140 girls. So it was the hostel and then the counseling of these girls, and then, and then these people as well. But it was during this time that we really felt. In 1988, we were given a small donation, or a piece of, got some money. It wasn't almost a donation, but somebody tapped me on the shoulder at church and said, "God has told me to give this money to you." And I said to God, "Okay, God, I've got a little missionary salary. He's a businessman. What do we need this money for?" And we felt so strongly to put it into a savings account for a care center one day. That was like the first thing that came to mind. Now, I don't know if you know about anything, but an adult putting 20 Rand in a savings account. Sounds
20 Rand.
20 Rand. And so I usually say to people when they say, "Oh, but I can only give something small." And I say, "You see what God has done with 20 Rand here, then you can see what God can do with that." So we put it into a savings account one day, and then we trained up somebody to run the hostel there. We then moved into the house in Port Shepstone. We were then exposed to child watch committees together with the Lions clubs, and there were various aspects. And one day this lady comes to me, I'm at the school with my children as swimming, And this lady says to me, she says, oh, I believe you want to help women and children and people. So I said, we really are, we're really doing that. And so he said, oh, I know so many people that want to help, So I thought, oh, okay. I was a little bit cynical because, from experience, I realized that, people didn't, they say they want to help, but they actually don't really know what to do. Anyway, so I said, okay, you know what? I'll make tea and fika, I'll do the fika, the biscuits and the tea. You bring the people. And that's what we did. And 28 people arrived at that meeting. And that was the first meeting that we had for what was then called the Place of Restoration Trust. So that was then registered in 1992. We registered as a trust. And we lived, at that stage, there were between 30 to 40 children that landed up having to go to jail every month because there was no places of safety. And we then, together with our family, decided we'll bring, they actually said to us, so can't we bring these children into our home? So we said, okay, well, let's try that. And we did, and within 6 months, we were 27 people living in our house with 3 caravans in the yard. And basically, that is the part that, and then when we were there, it was like, we were really still thinking about this place. Because remember, this 20 Rand that we had now, was like this place. And so when people used to give us money, we used to just put it into the account, because we thought we don't really need it. Basil's business was doing okay, so he was kind of part of running all this. And then one day, after 3 years of living with these 27 people like that, it got a bit much. And I mean, we even put up a sign on the door, because people would want to see, because we only had our room. We had our bedroom, and then sort of a little cupboard, and then like a walk-in cupboard and a bathroom. And one day, I hear someone putting something on the door. I check, and it says, do not disturb. If there's a fire, put it out, but don't disturb. So that was like to not disturb us as a family, because we were trying to kind of work with our family in all of this. But then we got this. I mean, there's a lot of things I can go into, but I'm not going into that sort of detail. But then we basically found this property, which had absolutely nothing on it. And I remember Basil coming home with the message like, we found it, because we'd been praying a lot and trusting God for the right place. And when we got home, he got home one day and says, I found the place. I thought, hey, we're going to move in 6 months' time, Only to go, when he took us here, it was like my heart just went, because it was like, no, it can't be. And of course, he's a builder, so he could see what was going to happen. I couldn't, And so it was like, okay, then I thought, I've got to bring the intercessors here. We have to pray. And anyway, so we did that. But the scripture that we got there was that we were going to be breaking new ground. And that this was, so we all felt really happy that was the right thing to do. And then we started building. And then we only had 9,000 in this account. And in 6 weeks' time, when we were supposed to buy it, because it was a bank repossession, the bank said to us, you can pay us 45,000 for it. That's all we want. And it was probably valued at about 100,000 at the time. And so we said, okay, God, we have 9,000 in this account. You have 6 weeks for this money to come, if this is what you want. And by the time we came to sign up, we had 55,000 in that account. And we were able to purchase this property and even have enough for transfer fees and to start building a little bit on the foundations. And there were people that would, we would start building, and then eventually we got some funding to start building the administration, and these big buildings started coming up, and people would stop outside here and say, what's going on here? There was a big Place of Restoration sign outside with Heal the Brokenhearted. A lot of people thought we were furniture sort of restorers. So we had to explain, no, we're about people and children. Anyway, and I'll never forget the one day we were standing here, and we were like, the men were working on the building and all that. And this one man came and stood there and he said, this will never work. He said, so many people have tried this, it's never going to work, you know. And I had to like take to myself and think, well, so I said, okay, well, whatever, we're giving it a try and let's see. And that's been the attitude all along, is that just, you know, we think that it's the attitude and maybe let's try it and let's not give up by what people say. And there we were, the men, like I said, we felt like we were nowhere building an ark on dry land. But there were so many lessons that we learned in perseverance, in understanding the vision, in understanding. And if you look back, if I look back now, it's been very interesting. The last week, it was very, up until last week, it was very sort of mechanical that we were having our 30th. And then last week, when I started going through some of the documentation and some of the pictures, I got very emotional, thinking about the people, hearing and seeing the incredible work that God has done through this place, through Place of Restoration then, which then in 2005, I think, changed names to give a child a family. It was a department at the time, and then became an organizational name eventually. So, yeah, so it's been incredible to see. But while we were doing the building, we were also working with a team, and we were also working with the philosophy and the vision and things like that. So also picked up the first little strategic plan that was anything but what we've got now. And interesting to see how it was all about people. It was all about families. It was all about children. It was all about restoring and rescuing and making sure that putting children back into the community. And then we started, when we were able to move here in 95, we had the one house and we brought in the caravans and we had some of the admin and we had a little nursery for the children. There was also the fact that now the children were stuck in the system. There was the influx of HIV and AIDS in the 1890s there. And everyone was saying, oh, we need to build these places. There's going to be 4.2 million orphans. And we started calculating like 4.2 million orphans. That's like the whole of Durban, you know. I mean, how are you ever going to build anything for 4.2 million children? And we really started looking at what are the options. And so we started exploring in a South African context, because we couldn't find anything in an African or South African context that was using the Ubuntu and the sort of systems that were already there, because the systems already had families caring for each other. So we then really looked at that and looked at went to Kimberley, did some research, looked at other places that were doing something similar. There was the interministerial thing that they were busy with, looking at youth transformation as well, transformation of care. And that's when we picked up that we really wanted to work with foster care. So we really got ourselves to understand how can we best work with foster care in an African context, which we then developed. And then 2002, we did our first training here of about 22 parents in foster care. And because what we did find is that we found people were actually willing, they just didn't know how to care. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how the systems would work. And of course, we also got registered as a child protection organization. We got registered as a CYCC. We got registered with the Master of Supreme Court. So we went through all the registrations and jumped through all the loops of that and things like that. And then we then had, still we found that the children were stuck in the system. And again, we became the spearheads of pushing through a system like the foster care. No one seemed to really understand that. They kept saying, oh, but that's not going to work. Our parents are dying. There's no ways we're going to have enough parents. And my answer to that was, or our answer to that was, well, as long as we have parents, we will keep this program going. Once there's no parents, then we have to rethink. And we've never not had parents. So foster parents have been there. So we have a database of about 25 foster parents. from way back then. And we've been basically screening, working with them, assessing them, screening, and making sure that they are suitable to care for children. And our social workers have got so good at this now that they can soon tell if you're doing this for money or not. So they basically end up, having to screen them out so that if people are doing this for the money, it becomes very obvious. And yeah, and then through all this, then we had the parents in the community saying, yeah, but now what about us? We also need this information. We also need to be taught. We started having sort of the whole aspect of our families wanting help, just normal kind of families in the community. And so they would then ask, please, can't we also do these courses? So we started developing courses on family strengthening, parenting for life, coping with death and trauma because of all the HIV/AIDS death and things that were happening around that. And so we developed a whole lot of those courses throughout that time. And then 2005 was the first time we actually went to Mozambique to investigate. We were asked to come and talk about foster care there. 2008, we went to Kenya to start off with. And there we were working together with UNICEF, the government there in Nairobi, as well as with organizations who really wanted to understand about foster care. And we worked there for several years, training and developing a little support group called KEFCAM, which was short for Kenya Foster Care Network. And then we ran some national conferences together with ANPAN there. And then again, we ran an international conference in 2009, where we were promoting families for children in Africa. And yeah, and that year, at the end of that year, the guidelines came out for alternative care, which was then brought out by the United Nations. So, and when I looked at that, it was like, sure, this is almost like the way we do it, So that was really interesting. So over the years, we've just seen how this work has, and then we've gone to, so we work in about 12 different countries, or have worked in about 12 different countries with different methods. The issue is the philosophy. I think if I had to also do something different, I would not necessarily want to have a place like we've got now, although it's beautiful and it's worked and it's been good. But I think what we really wanted to promote when we went into Africa was the philosophy of care, a philosophy of children in secure families. And that was really something that we wanted to make sure would be what we want, for Africa, because that was actually, it was for Africa by Africa, because we had used the local people to help us write this program and give us information and give us input in that. So, and then we came back here, and we then been working with, we've had a conference in Johannesburg in 2015, implementing family care. And that we were all part of that. I think almost all of us that were in the room, except for Tulisi. But we had this conference that was very successful from 34 different countries in Africa, and really promoting family care and implementing it, and how do you implement it. So that was really good. So then over the process, then we've also really looked at how can we not just do the work, because we are very much on the sort of micro level working on the ground. We usually refer to ourselves as the sandbox. This is our sandbox where we learn and we play and we kind of get to understand things. But we really wanted to make a difference, because I think something that I've realized over the years is that we haven't really made much of a difference as far as, and I'm not meaning to the people we've helped, of course we've made a difference, but in the bigger scheme of things, there's much more that needs to be done. So we really looked at that and looked at how can we advocate for systems change and that. So in 2015, we had been working with our own strategic plan, looking at how can we improve our services to incorporate the nurturing care framework into our work here at GCF. Looking, because a lot of our work was already had that in it, but we wanted to really sort of establish it in there. And then we looked at that, and then we had various table conferences or table sort of roundtable talks. Thank you, Stephen. We had roundtable talks with various role players in the country, from DPME to, which is the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, the Child Rights Commissioner, we had UNICEF there, people who were working in the sphere, we had academia there, and we were all asking the same questions as how do we make a difference to really bring change. And then in 2018, we had the privilege of taking a group of people to Sweden to link and learn about the work that we are doing in families and in the communities, and also just learning about the rights, children's rights, and how children's rights to be in family, and that is really important. And so we basically worked through that, and then so we were about 14 people that went to the 3-day quick whiz around the Sweden, learning a lot. Really, we learned a lot, and we all then came back very excited. And then, as a result of that, over the years, we've basically really looked at how we can develop sort of a coalition around children's rights. So in 2019 and 20, during COVID, we actually established the South African National Child Rights Coalition to be able to be that instrument, where today now we have 130 organizations that are part of that, really wanting to also bring change to the systems, where submissions are being made both to the presidency and to the UN. The list of issues that we presented was taken on board. So we're very happy and very proud about that we as a group of people, together with Save the Children as well, we were about 12 of us, 12 organizations that were part of that to start with. But to get to where we are here, we started realizing that we in our strategic plan, we had made that decision that we're going to transform care, because we all along have believed that children should not be an institution. And, you know, we're very proud of our place here. It's really beautiful. It provides good care, really good care. I think it's a 5-star hotel for poor children. Really, it is. But it's still an institution. And we realize the damage that it's causing, where we've seen it, the damage that it's caused to these children, not because they haven't been cared for, but just the emotional damage that they've had, that has happened as a result of the institutional care. So we've basically really just been looking at how can we really bring about the change that we want. And so that is a journey we're on at the moment, looking at from here where to, you know, and that's why it's 30 years plus, because we're not nearly finished yet. We have a lot more fighting to do. But yeah, I believe we're on the right track. I believe we're going in the right direction. There are huge challenges, and we are not fooled by the fact that there will be, and there are. Financially, it's not a good thing at all for us, because we're obviously going to not get the funding from government to continue here. But yeah, we've worked in Mozambique with these questions. We've seen how the laws have changed there. Namibia, the laws have changed there. Kenya, the laws have changed there. And I'm not saying it's only us, but we were part of others working on these issues. So I really believe that Give a Child a Family has a passion to make sure that children are in secure families. And that is really, really where we want to go. I mean, even just today, we had the privilege of going to a family that had taken a child, and I can't tell you the joy of seeing the bonding Now, we didn't see the child because the child was at school, but this mother had been totally traumatized by something that had happened to the child, and her passion and compassion for the pain this child was going through because of the rejection that she'd had. I mean, we could never do that in this environment. Yes, of course, we've got therapy, we've got all that, and yes, the child probably still needs therapy, and that's something we're going to provide in the community, because now we're going to be community-based. So our services will be in the community. They're just not going to be, children are not going to be stuck. You know what I usually say? If a child cannot get to the fridge at night, they're in an institution. If a child, if you go on holiday and you have to leave a child behind, they're in an institution. So for me, it's very clear the difference between institutional care and family care. So yeah, I mean, I can go on forever. And I know that we have a time limit, but I was given a generous amount of time to share this. Yeah, so that's where we're at. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Monica, thank you very much for that. I think you know, for the people that are outside and for the people that are here as well, I think there's a couple of things that really stand out, and that is, number one is the passion that everybody has for the work that is being done, the buy-in to the vision, how that is working. The belief in families, the belief that children belong in families. I mean, it's in our name. There's, you know, you put something you believe in really in your name. And, you know, it's something that just pops to my mind when you were speaking, is we've heard it so many times here, and people always laugh. Next week, when things return to normal, when things go back to normal, when it gets quieter next week, you know, I've been here, me personally, I've been hearing that for 10 years here. It hasn't got quiet to return to normal just yet. So it makes me question what exactly is normal in terms of GCF. Yeah. So thank you, Monica. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for sharing with us. And I hope that that's informative for people out there. I'm sure that there will be more questions coming. So, you know, talking about questions, so we do have a lot of questions around the work that we do. We get questions that come up quite frequently to different people, and so we're going to be asking a couple of those that have been brought forward. So Anna Karen, the first one is for you. So a question that comes up very often is, how do I know that the money that I give or donate is used for what it is aimed for?
It's a good question that I have got personally many times. And I can only speak then for GCF. So other organizations, they do their own thing, but we have different control measures in place. So let's say that I need money for something on behalf of the organization. It's not just for me to go to the finance person and ask for the money. No, it needs to be authorized. And if it's above a certain amount, it needs to be authorized from 2 people. So, I mean, that is one thing that makes it hard to get the money just for myself and spend for myself. It should not be done. We have auditors coming every single year to check our bookkeeping. And it's not internal, they're external auditors that are arriving, and they go through things in detail. And another thing, if you want to know where your money is going, so let's say you are transferring money into one of GCFs. Okay, we are called GCF.
Give it up.
GCF. So we have 3 bank accounts where money is coming in. It's a South African, it's a Swedish one, and it's one in the Netherlands. So if you feel like, oh, I really would like to give money for something, it can be a community project, it can be a new car or anything, then you specify what you want the money to go to. So if you say car, then we know exactly this is money we're going to put aside for a car. We're not going to spend it on anything else. And if you have questions, was it really used, or is it used yet? You can just email or phone our finance department and they can check if you know the date that the transfer was at, then that's how it works.
Thank you very much. I think it's important for people to feel comfortable that you know what they're giving money to is where the money is being spent. So for people that want to access it on our website, our annual report, they can find that there. The annual report contains the financial position or the financial statement of the organization.
Yeah.
So you can go through that and have a look at your own time. You can go in and have a look at the annual report. So thank you, AK. Thank you.
But because on the annual report, I can just tell you where to find it. So I think in the chat they will write the email address, but then you go to resources. Then you can find www.gcf.org.za. And then when you're there, you go to resources, and there you can find annual reports from, I can't remember how many years, but it's quite a few years.
Thank you.
And then, as you said, you can see the breakdowns, how the money is spent, and you can also see who has donated what.
Thank you very much.
And then, can I have another thing I would like to say? I often get, after this question, I get the next question. So especially from foreign people. So what is the government doing? And the government for us is Department of Social Development. We, as a child protection organization and a child youth care center, we are registered with them. So we are accountable how we use that money that they give us, but we are using it right. So we are submitting stats every year, every month. All different kind of things that we have to submit, so they see that we adhere to what we have promised to do. But to see how much money we get from the government, that is around 20, 21, 22% per year. So they do things. Some people, in some countries, government might not do anything. In some countries, they might do a lot. But in South Africa, it's, for us, let's say 21%.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. And as you said, it's an important question. It's something that people often ask about, you know, how's the money being spent? So thank you very much for that. A follow-on question for that, and I'm going to direct this to my left to Maria, is it's often the question is not just about the money. So we understand how we can track the money, and you can rest assured that the way that it's being spent. But how do you measure the impact of the work that you do? How is that? So not just necessarily the money, but the impact of the work you're doing.
The impacts, it's interesting. I think if you look at the Child and Youth Care Center, as what AK said, it's rather easy to measure and show external what you're doing, because you know the number of kids, who comes in, who goes out. I think it becomes a bit more complicated when you do preventative work in the community. But it is such an important part of the work that we are doing. Often people think, give a child a family, the Child and Youth Care Center, and that is the big thing that people see, and because that is where people come to. But the non-visible, so visible, is actually much bigger. That is our work outside, our community work, preventative work, and there, I mean, how do you measure that a child, a family that you've worked is that the children won't be removed? And there you have, must put other measures in place. And one of the things which you can do is risk and wellness factors, indicators, just to see before you start to work with an indicated family, to do a baseline, where are they at that moment before you really start to get involved with them with training and guidance. And right at the end, you can do it again, and just to see how that has shifted. Has the risk been gone lower and the wellness higher, because that is ultimate what you want, or is there an equal? And to check that last part, I mean, you can ask the family questions in the beginning, and then they might answer differently at the end because they think that is what you need to hear. But obviously, again, you work around that as well, because you can ask the other people in the households the same questions. You can ask community, you can ask schools, if, because we work with families. And in that sense, you get a pretty good view of the impact of the work in the communities, how that is actually, what is the word I'm looking for? What impact, impact is of the work that you're doing, yes.
So I think for a while we workshopped through that. We understood that that was not something that we particularly were so great at. remember at that stage, what happened then when we really started putting a focus on impact? We started talking a lot about it.
Because initially it was all like, we're doing good work, and we still believe we do good work, but there was not really tangible. You could not really prove, like, okay, where do you see that? Like, okay, we could share stories, but still it is a story, and people would like, not like the stats, people would like to see, okay, just show me on a piece of paper, how is that now working? We got the opportunity, some of the senior staff, to do a training, dialogue in action. It was for over a period of a couple of months, in class via Zoom, but also a practical component, because otherwise it becomes again very theoretical. So it really had to be put in practice and see how that actually works. So you will be able to implement it in our setting here. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Maria. That is absolutely answered my question. So I hope for the audience, I hope that you can hear implementation is quite a strong point for GCF. It's something that we talk about a lot and we focus on a lot. Theoretical stuff is fantastic, but if it's not, we're not able to implement it and make change, measure impact, you know, then we have a difficulty with that. So thank you, Maria, for that. So that leads me on to my next question. It's going to be for you, Mkhosi. So the question is, when we're talking about impact, some of the things that we make an impact with, as an organization, do we give food parcels or school uniforms to those that are in need?
That's a very interesting question, because our district, Ugu, has approximately 800,000 people. And it's just one district of 11 districts in the province. So now our challenge is, who are we going to give? So now you might have noticed in the previous discussion between Stephen and Monica that there are war rooms. Well, this is not a room where people walk in to have a fun. So, but this is when you have different government departments, organizations, and all those people in the community coming together and have a fighting against poverty, fighting against gender-based violence, fighting against social ills. So that is where we learn which area needs more help than any other. We cannot say that we like this particular community, we are going to give it this service. So those are some of the platforms, war rooms, where we learn which community needs more. And when we give as an organization, we want to make sure that we retain the dignity of that particular family. You see, giving food parcels, if you are a father of your family and you are always seen by your children receiving handouts from organizations, really your dignity is compromised. So what we do, which is what we believe works better for the communities, to give them a food voucher, say to the value of 1,000 rand. So people will go there, participate in bringing food on the table themselves. So even children, they will look at their parents going there to buy. They do not know that the parent has received a voucher from Give a Child a Family. So that is very important for us to make sure that children at home respect their parents and parents maintain their dignity through providing in those families. So for us, that is very important. So recently we had floods. I'm sure you saw that on TV. So one of our areas, about 30 km from here, was heavily affected by that. So what we did, through those platforms like war rooms, so we knew that these particular communities are in need. Then we went into those communities, we provided uniform, we provided food, provided even shoes for children. And during that time, it was so interesting that the staff members of GCF went with the parents to the shop. They were there till paying, but the parents will tell us that this is what we need. And they are there by the till to pay. So actually we are paying, but they are there as well. So when they come home, they come up with the stuff, then the children will see their parents that they are real parents. They have participated in the provision of what I need. So those are the things that we want to do to make sure that the family is respected by children. So And we want to have our children in secure families. And those families that are conducive for children to grow up are those families where children can be provided what they need. So that is done through their own parents.
Policy, thank you very much. So I hear what you're saying. It's really a focus on preservation of families, preventing the families from breaking down. So by supporting the dignity of families, you are participating in that preventative nature of it.
Yes.
And so thank you very much for that. And that leads me into my next question, again for AK and a Karen, but AK. So when GCF talks about preventative work, what do you mean? How do you work preventatively?
Now, I think all my colleagues here have used the word preventative. So what does preventative mean? It means to stop something from happening. So when it comes to GCF, what we don't want to happen is that children are removed from their families and put in institutions. Because we would rather see children thriving in their own families, where they can develop, where the family is safe, secure, loving. So that is our aim in everything that we do. Excuse me. So I'm the one with a very scratchy voice that you mentioned.
An additional technical challenge of
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in the areas that we have around Margate, it's like everywhere in the world, it's a lot of social ills. And we are really not spared at all. They might look different, but we are not spared. And what's Kolisi, you already said, you're speaking about war rooms, which is actually community meetings, where stakeholders, or like the important key people in a village, that it can be the police, the nurse, teacher, it's the chief, the social worker, all different kind of people. And there we have our community workers are present in several areas in the like different villages around us. And that is one way. What you also say, Kolisi, that is how we can see what are the needs in the areas.
Yeah.
Because we cannot just go in and say, we think that you need this. No, it's not how it works. So in these specific areas, it's where we have trained quite a few parents, mostly mothers, a few fathers, in different parenting skills trainings, parenting courses. And we have also run support groups in these areas for parents, which is preventative because it strengthens the parenting skills, for example. And it's also in these meetings, as you said, the war rooms, where cases are discussed. It can be domestic violence cases, it can be children that are ill-treated, it can be anything that has to do with the community. And then our community workers are bringing those cases back to one of our social workers, and she is following up. So sometimes she can help them with everything that they need. But otherwise, if she's not capable, she refers to, it can be to other NGOs or governmental departments or anything else that they need. So we don't leave cases, we refer if we cannot help them ourselves. So also the same social work, we have something we call a help desk, which is a telephonic help desk service. The people are phoning in, and it's mostly about child protection matters in all different levels. And also there, she gives guidance. She gives a lot of advice. And sometimes she's doing home visits to find out how the situation is. And when she has to refer, she does. So that is something that is really important. And again, I think I mentioned that before a little bit, we don't want to work alone. We find that you are much stronger when you work together with like-minded organizations. We need to work with government. We work with churches, we work with, I don't know, maybe you can add something else.
Traditional leaders.
Traditional leaders, exactly.
Yeah.
That is duty bearers. It is very important to not do things just alone, because we don't know best. We learn from each other, we are stronger together.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So the preventative work, a lot of it is around, we've used the words preservation, we've used preventative, and it's really quite key in that, and that we do it with other people.
Yeah.
I can just, for our audience, I can just mention that under COVID, that help desk phone, it vibrated off the desk many times. There was a lot of need and a lot of phone calls. So the referral, the way that we operate and the network that we use for that has been very, very good.
Yes.
It's been proven to be quite effective. So thank you for that.
I can actually add a few things that we work on different levels. We work locally, and that is often with, it can be teachers, it can be learners, it can be, as I said, churches, traditional leaders. But we also work more on a national level in other countries as well, in Africa.
Sure.
So we try to do preventative work a little bit everywhere, just to reach as many as we can.
Because we strongly believe in it. I think
Yes.
it's a foundation
Yes.
principle of what we do is we would far rather be preventing what's coming than trying to fix what is happening.
So one of our departments is, I was talking about community workers, we call it family strengthening. So I mean, you can hear the name, we want to strengthen families.
Yeah. So thank you very, very much for that. And so when we take that in mind, so if we're thinking about the preventative work or the nature of the preventative kind of focus that GCF has, and the next question is going to be for you, Monica. So when we're looking at incidents that happen in the community, something happens, there's a referral or so on. What will happen if an incident occurs where you can't place a child?
Well, I think we always have to, as long as the tap for institution is open, that will become the first port of call. So I think that's where we are wanting to make sure that we can start closing those taps and really start using the families that are out there, Now we know that they are difficult to place children, but we also work with relatives, we work with the kinship families. We always look at how can we best meet the needs of that child? What's in the best interest of that child? What are their rights in this whole process, and having to sort of promote that? And so we've discovered that most children have got parents. Most children have got family. So it's really looking at how can we, it's kind of how can we get them into those families and that. So I think that's where we've been sort of looking at and challenged as well with, looking at realizing that in institutions, I think, I don't know the percentage, maybe you remember the percentage, Stephen, of how many children in institutions actually still have families.
Yeah, I think it's, it's upwards of about 85%.
I was going to say that, and I thought, well, maybe I'm a bit over the top, but I sort of had that figure in mind as well, that 85% of the children in institutions actually do have families, and that is being proven. So we have to work very hard at preventative, looking at how can we prevent these incidences happening and strengthening the communities around the family. And that is that whole, all the people that work with those families, the integrated child safeguarding systems around that child, making sure that we really strengthen that.
So I think it's, from the discussion, I think it's quite clear that we are really very much in favor of children have a place to go, and that's in families. And I think a lot of it is that the work that needs to be done around to find those families and to place. So we strongly believe as Give a Child a Family, again, that's in the name, Give a Child a Family. But so bearing that in mind, the follow-up question to that, Monica, will be, will there never be a need for institutions?
I would want to say there will never be a need, but it's how we do it. So what we have is we have temporary safe care parents, and it's to strengthen those and to help those, those parents, the temporary safe care parent, to care for those children, because we believe that children should be in family. It's got to be family-based. So whether it's a house in the community where they've got access to the fridge, as I say, or whatever it might be, I believe that is really, really important. And it should be for as short as possible. Like, even with the temporary safe care, I mean, it's been interesting to follow some of our processes that have happened and how some of those families, the child was there for 6 months. There is no family that they were able to follow up, and they then said, okay, well, we'll foster those children, you know. And that's really, the chemistry is there, the relationship is there, so it makes sense. So we just have to keep finding new temporary safe care parents. But it is about family-based.
So thank you, Monica. Thank you very much for that. And I think, you know, the process that we're embarking on, I mean, you know, the next 30 years, as Monica said, you know, earlier, it's not done. The next 30 years is only starting now. So, you know, there's another journey to be covered. And again, that is really around the preventative side, really focusing on seeing over the past time what the damage is and how it's been done. So we want to work much more on just preventing it in the first place. So one of the preventative works that was mentioned, we talked about, you spoke about the family strengthening. So now the family strengthening is a very positive program. It's a good program. So one of the questions that we get is, and this is going to be for you, Khaleesi, is why are only certain people in the community selected for programs, when we know the reality is that everyone needs to be equipped with that knowledge? Why do we choose only selected people?
Well, people to get help from GCF are selected based on the need. So, well, a need will arise as a result of a natural disaster, will result as a result of COVID, as a result of anything that is happening at the community level. And those are the things that we'll look at as to what is happening in that particular community. Earlier on, we mentioned the point of war rooms, that in the war rooms, we have those discussions. We have different people there, including councillors, people who are taking care of those who are in the community. We have government departments. All those people know exactly what is a particular issue in that particular community. So therefore, that community is the one that is supposed to benefit for the help that is there, because it has been collectively defined and appointed that this is a problem that we have in that particular community.
So you know, coming through to identifying the people that are going through there, one of the mechanisms we use is the war rooms. Do we recruit people? We find people, you know, participants for the programs coming through the war rooms.
Yes.
Is that one of the places that we would recruit in?
Yes, we recruit through the war rooms, as we are saying.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, as Khaleesi mentioned a little earlier, is that the communities often are best set for themselves to know what the need is. You know, we've had experience of side-by-side communities.
Yes.
That they may share some overlapping and common, you know, 2 wards next to each other.
Yes.
They may have some similar issues, but they could also have very different issues, and they're really close together. So identifying, you know, the people to participate in that program needs to happen on kind of a needs base. We need to have a look at the need that is there. And you know, I think, of course, because of funding, we realize that you know, everybody needs the help, but you know, funding is limited, and that forces us to do certain things. What could be some of those choices that we have to make? You know, when we're selecting people, do we have criteria? How does that work? How do we do that?
Well, you see, in the communities, as we have said, that we are having a community that have different needs. We therefore have to make sure that we use the power holders that are there. We have traditional leaders. We have religious leaders. Religious leaders have influence. In churches, they can influence the community, people who are in the church. So even the needs that are there will be well received in the church, because the church is not there to stand behind the pulpit and preach the gospel, but also to understand the needs that people who are coming to church have, are experiencing in their respective communities. So that is just one platform. And also when we are looking at the traditional leaders, as we were talking about the communities, those people are people who are respected in the communities, are people who are taking decisions depending on the issues that are experienced by that particular community. So as we were talking about communities a lot, we need to ask ourselves, in those communities, who are there? Who is really taking a decision about the issues that are there? We have a crisis, say, for instance, floods, for instance. So those people who are power holders, the moral bearers. So what are they going to do? They will exactly inform us that this is a community that is in need, because you are there at GCF, Give a Child a Family, you are not there in the community, you cannot really experience what is going on there. So those are the people that we can really rely on.
Thank you very much for that. So I hope what is clear is the fact that, you know, we understand that the need is immense, that there is a really good need there. But, you know, in terms of what we are able to do and the targets with the resources that we have, we do make use of the war rooms, the traditional leaders, the networks that have been referred to in this, to really target that and try and identify the people that we are able to help. You know, because otherwise I think it's, you can end up just pouring it into, it's just at the bottom of the street.
Can I give an example?
And a current, please.
So one of our new parenting trainings are based on the nurturing care framework that Maria was saying before. And that framework targets children, especially children from 0 to 5 years. So the criteria for that specific course will be parents that are taking care, or grandparents, anyone taking care of children 0 to 5 years. So that is an easy way of explaining it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It really makes sense because, you know, if we're not clear on our own selection criteria, it will become a real big problem. You know, to try and target and make use of our resources the best way we can. One of the things, you mentioned, you were talking about, you know, the people in the community and understanding, like with the war rooms and the different people that are engaged. So, Monica, this question is going to be for you. So we know that not all government departments, you know, all participate in the war rooms. There are certain. So then we have a situation where we want a particular department to be present. So GCF does a lot of advocacy. We take part in a lot of advocacy. So could you explain what is that and how do we do it?
When we talk about advocacy, it's become my favorite subject. In Swedish, you talk about making, like pushing to make a difference, or like påverkan is, you know, like it's like you like put effort into bringing change. And I love that because advocacy is about really looking at how can we bring change. And I think, as I said a bit in my earlier introduction, that after all these years, we just realized that the children's rights are misunderstood, are not understood. And so our role of advocacy, we've decided, was to go the route of the South African National Child Rights Coalition within South Africa, together with all these 130 other organizations and an executive and a steering committee of different organizations that all are passionate about making sure that children are safe and children are well cared for, inclusive, you know, education and various aspects there. The other thing that we work is that we've worked very hard in Africa. We've worked with TAA, Transform Africa Alliance. We've worked with Children Without Parental Care. These are all networks that we're working with in Africa to really bring awareness, bring change, and advocate for change. And some of our courses that we've also developed is we've developed courses called Justice for Children, which we work with. We realize that moral duty bearers have an incredible influence in children's and families' lives because they're in the community. Because remember, we say that the child is in the family is in the community, and that's kind of these rings, these circles around a child. And so that's really important that we understand that one of those circles is the moral duty bearers that are working with them in various forms. So that's really what we really strive for, and a lot of our work is looking at advocating for the rights and the best interests of children in very different circumstances.
And I think something that I've learned from you is really around, the advocacy is not only about children, it's about families too.
Yeah.
So that is an important part, the advocating for families and family preservation.
And I would say, like we always say that, I mean, strong families will build a strong nation. I do not understand that we cannot understand that building strong families will bring the economy, will bring an improved economy. But there's very little funding for organizations that, I mean, if you look, I mean, I think we've put out about 150 proposals this year of different proposals, but to find anything on family and children is very difficult. And I don't understand, because if you really had to drive the agenda of families, strengthening families, those families would be the strength of the nation. Because, whether they're poor or wealthy or whatever, they would still be able to input because they are empowered to bring change.
Thank you. So take note, advocating for families, advocating. So I want to just pick up on something. Thank you, Monica. Khaleesi, the next one's for you. So both you and Monica have now mentioned moral duty bearers. Can you please explain to us a little bit what are moral duty bearers?
Well, those are the people that I've just spoken about. In the community, we have religious leaders. Those are people who give no invitation for people to come to church. They will have an audience in church, and those are the people who are believed that they are doing the right things. They are always an example. So if the community has such a person, so it is believed that that person will impart values, will impart what is right, what is not good, what is supposed to be done, and so on. So that's a religious leaders, and those are religious leaders. And if you look at, in the case of South Africa, more than 80% of people go to church every Sunday, predominantly Christians. So people have an opportunity to listen, to be influenced in a very positive way. So that's just one pillar of influence, the religious leaders. The other one, traditional leaders. Well, traditional leaders are people, well, I want to make reference to the mourning that we all have in the world about the passing of Queen Elizabeth. So she was a figure that was respected all over. So whatever that she was saying will be heard, will be listened to, and they are more likely to do exactly what she was saying. So here in the country, we have a traditional leadership structure. So we are going to look at the local areas where we operate. They are traditional leaders. They are people who have inherited leadership from their family, from their parents. If I'm a traditional leader today, my son, if I die, will take over, something like that. So those people are respected. And those are the people that some people used to call them gatekeepers. Before you enter into the community, do anything, you have to get the permission from them. Yeah. So then they will give you the permission to work. So if those people that you are working with them are on our side, talking about families, they will make sure that they play their role, encourage families. They will make sure that those children that are not attached to any families, they will have to be allocated families, because it doesn't take your biological parent to be your mother, to be your father. So we live by the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. So therefore, that is normally observed and monitored by the traditional leaders. They will have traditional council meetings. In their agenda, they will look at the issues of children, if there are children that are found loitering around the village without a home. So they have a way. Once they discuss something like that and they want something to be done, I'm telling you, each and every community will follow that, because the traditional leader has spoken.
Thank you, Khaleesi. That's it's just such a good point, and it's just something that we believe in as an organization, is that the moral duty bearers cannot be left out of any discussion. So just because they're not legally mandated in all instances, they have enormous power, and you cannot disregard them. You cannot not work with them, to the detriment of your program. So that's one of the really key thing. Thank you for that explanation for people to understand. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Maria, it is back to you.
It's
right now. So Like earlier, you made reference to the nurturing care framework, and I know that that's included in the strategic plan. Can you give us a little bit more information about what is the nurturing care framework?
The Nurturing Care Framework is formulated by the World Health Organization and supported by UNICEF, World Bank, and all the big role players when it comes to work with children and families. It has 5 domains and it's really focused on early child development. Age group, not 5 years. And it is all around 5 domains. It's good health, nutritious food, adequate nutritious food, because it can be a little bit, I mean, obviously kids need to grow and to develop, so, and only just a lot of food is not good, because we know with Biafra, kids had a lot of foods, but they were still malnutritioned, so that all comes together. A safe and secure environment, so what really like how the environment where they live, the community where they live, is it safe, is it secure for children to thrive? Are there learning opportunities for children? And I think one of the most that holds actually the whole thing together is the caregiver. Is it a caregiver that is responsive to the needs of the children? Because if that isn't addressed, then all the other ones will fall away as well. And the caregiver in this context is not like caregivers that we have in an institution, is really in a family setting. The caregiver, whether it is a parent or an uncle or aunt, as we spoke before.
So thank you, Maria. Thank you for that. I think it ties back to what Maria was talking about earlier when we were talking about the impact that we're making. So realizing at a stage that the impact that we make, we need to have this based on an evidence-based footing for the decisions that we're making and for the frameworks that we're using. Yeah. So using the nurturing care framework for us was, was really interesting. It's a lot of learning, and we've incorporated that in our new strategic plan, in our 2018 and onwards strategic plan, based on the, what's contained in the nurturing care framework. So thank you very much for that. So we have kind of reached the end of the questions that I have for my colleagues, but there may be more, so wait, there's always some more. Thank you very much for that. I would like to just ask from the panel, from you guys here, are there any closing remarks? Is there anything anything that you would like to just wrap up with or close off with?
I can start by saying it is better to grow a boy than to mend a man. So the whole idea of prevention is really important.
Thank you. And Corin.
I was thinking about something that we often say in GCF, it is that child protection is everyone's business. So it means not only us working in the child protection organization, but everyone out there. We all have children around us, even if we're not parents. We might work with them. We have neighbors, we have nieces and nephews, grandchildren. So it's very important to be there for the children.
I like the preparation that has been happening where parents are trained, especially those foster parents, including fathers as well. So, well, this is just to demonstrate that the roads are heading to communities. Everybody's going to a community. So whatever that has been happening here is now going to happen in the community. GCF is still there, but not within the buildings, more in the communities. So we are heading there. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that is one of the exciting periods now going ahead. That's it's more community-based, and I think predominantly the preventative work. If I just think of parents that had children in institution and they went through our training, like parenting skills. But you then get feedback, because sometimes I ask my colleagues, the facilitators, like, what kind of feedback do you get? And some parents really said, if we only knew this before. And I think that is such a powerful remark, because that tells me if we can be more preventative in the communities, a lot of the children would not even have been removed. It's just a support, give them a support group, connect them together. And I think it's tough out there. So if you don't have that, It's, I can understand, you're in survival mode and you don't know where the next meal comes from, and you might be depressed or postnatal depression. I think that is often happening as well.
Mental health
Issues, and I think all that's together, that creates a situation that the parents sort of give up and the child is removed. And if you can just prevent, like with the Nurture framework, that is actually not only around the child, it's the family included, because if the parent isn't healthy, isn't stable, it affects the whole family. And if it affects the family, it's just the child. So,
And I also want to say, you know, I think because we've been around for so long, I think I really would want to plead with the people who have been part of our organizations, this organization for a long time, that because we're not about to close, we need all the support that we can have. And we are embarking, as much as we're also trying to do the fundraising, we are embarking on monthly individual contributions that we really believe, because we've seen that if you can get 1,000 people giving 100 Rand or 50 Rand or 200 Rand, or organizations giving 500 Rand a month, you know, we've really seen that no matter what the economy does, that still kind of stays stable. Because, you know, you can just go without 2 coffees and you can actually give money to GCF on a monthly basis that way. So I would really want to appeal that we really see this also as an organization that is a developmental organization. As you see, we didn't stop, we keep growing and developing. And with that, we would really need the support of people, individuals particularly. And there will be opportunity to go onto our website as well. There's opportunity for that on the website to go and become a monthly contributor. For those of you coming to our AGM tomorrow, you'll have an opportunity to do that as well as on Saturday. So, and also just to contact us if you need to, but really that is something that we are just really promoting, is the monthly contributions.
Thank you, Monica. And it's so important. It's so important to the work that we do and translating out into the communities that we are serving. I also would like to ask if there's any questions from the chat. Anybody would like to say anything? I think there is somebody that would like to say something. So I would like to hand over to the technical team to make that happen for us. Right, so as we go along,
Okay.
We're good, we're ready. Thank you, please go ahead.
Did Micah?
I think that is Micah. Thank you.
Stephen, can you unmute my video, please?
Unmute.
We can hear you well.
Okay, then I'll start. I would like to put on video as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go to the video.
Okay, anyway, I'll not waste your time. So first of all, I would like to add 3 messages this evening. 1 of leadership, 2 of perseverance, and 3 of teamwork and love. So I have seen your leadership, Monica, for the last 30 years, and really admire you how with your team you developed a role model for childcare in Margate, in South Africa, which resonates for the whole continent, and how you ably inspired government policymakers in Kenya and Mozambique with your team's knowledge, wisdom, and expertise. We met in Mozambique many years ago, and I think it was 2011 or something. And we worked together on alternative care in institutions, and then together in South Africa. And I really admire how your leadership then embraced, as a give a child a family, the initiative towards creating a child rights study tour to Sweden with representatives from the Office of the Rights of the Child and the Parliament, as well as civil society, the media, and the private sector. And I think what is not coming to the fore so much in your talk, but what I would like to add is really the matter of partnerships. You have been able to embrace extremely strategic partners in the growth of your model of nurturing care in South Africa and around the continent, and provided leadership in the establishment of the National Coalition, demonstrating the need to put a nurturing care framework forward and strengthen families first, and to make sure that children are all safe at all times with an accelerated investment in prevention and early intervention services. And I think that the Give a Child a Family research and evidence building is very important contribution of your work and an angle that you can further build on. But with leadership comes perseverance. You know, I know your story as a team, but when I listen this evening again, is that 30 years of building up a model and to stick together as a team, to expand the team, and to see life changing in a world that's ever changing and becoming more hostile and more complex and more challenging. I really admire the perseverance of the Give a Child a Family team, and how you managed to navigate the different storms, especially also the last 2 years with conflict and with floods. And you know, childcare also needs to be therefore flexible somehow to be able to respond to the circumstances that children face. So in terms of teamwork, I have been at the center several times, and yeah, you know, I am a very emotional person, so I get very inspired by the love that you have for each other and the strong bond and how you support each other in your growth, and the cohesion amongst the team. And that is very important to grow a program over time too. So I wanted to add that lesson for this evening. Then Monica, you and Basil, I think, are role models and father and mother of the nation of this Give a Child a Family team, but also as role models to many of us with a lot of inspiration, how you have been able to care for yourself and for others and for the children in your care directly and in many communities. And I think you can be so proud as a team of how many children you have given a family. And I'm very proud of that. So what I wanted to add, second message, is that the model that you are representing is very much in line with UNICEF's global policy, as we are also accelerating investments in prevention, early intervention services in an overall child rights governance framework. I think that the combination of the two is extremely important, because tonight you also said it takes a village to raise a child, and the community mobilization around that nurturing care framework is crucial to strengthen families and to put them first. So lastly, I am asking everyone on this talk and call and YouTube and video, Facebook, to fund Give a Child a Family. This good work cannot be done without continued funding to come in for more children to be reached and for the model to become expanded within South Africa and beyond. Kudos! You earned all an award and a big medal, and from me in Lebanon, a big hug for tonight.
Thank you so much, Micah. Thank you. And we didn't pay you to say that. Thank you so much, Micah. Really, we miss you. We would have loved to have had you, as you know. But yeah, thank you. That was very special, and we really appreciate your leadership as well in the work that we've done with UNICEF, and we are very grateful for that work. And we look forward to, this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new era for us.
Exactly, and we continue to be in touch and to work together.
Yeah.
All right.
We're gonna fly, Micah. We're gonna fly.
Thank you so much, Micah. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the celebrations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So that brings
just
us
to say, Micah from UNICEF.
Yeah, Micah from UNICEF, who was based in to be encountered first in Mozambique. Then she moved to South Africa and was an ally again in children's matters, and has now moved on and is now based in Lebanon. And we do miss you, Micah. You still on the call. We do miss you. So I would like to think that The last question that, if I may ask, is going to be for Monica, and I think that's only fitting. The starting question was with sorry, and I'm ignoring our audience behind us. What you can't see is that we do have an audience here. It's not only us, there are some other people. We didn't pay them for that either. Are there any questions from the audience? Would anybody like to ask a question?
Just we appreciate to listen and to hear the work that has been done. The business, sitting here, giving testimony to this discussion.
Thank you very, very much. Lydia.
Still more, how can people get involved with the work of GCF? See that GCF is moving into the community.
Yeah. Anyone else want to answer that?
We'll leave the last question for the second to last and the last question for you, Monica.
There are many ways of getting involved. We used to have international volunteers, but since COVID, we've never had that. But we also realize that there's a place for people to come in and assist on a voluntary basis because people want to serve. People want to serve and want to give. So we realize that. And so we have and will have opportunities where there's going to be work in the community that needs to be done. And I mean, I don't know all that will look like, but we will keep you informed and updated on that. But there's definitely opportunity to get involved. Other than the finances, there's opportunity to get involved physically as well, and especially if you're local, but even if international. It will be different now because we might not necessarily have a lot of children at the center or at the center at all. Then it would be easier for us to maneuver and be able to handle the work. And if you are a professional in any way with regards to things like physiotherapy, social work, all that sort of thing, those things are also very important because as we go into the community, our services are not going to decrease. They will increase. And the work that we've done here with our children, the physiotherapy and all that to improve their way of their life will continue in the community. So it's not going to change. It's going to improve and be wider and there's more access to the services. So we really that's how I understand that to be. I don't know if there's anything else anyone else wants to say. Okay, maybe.
I can just add something. I know, because I know the Swedish people. I'm a Swede myself, but it is people like my church in Sweden, the Sunday school that is collecting every single Sunday, and it goes from the children there to the children here. So it's many ways of doing things. You can have a campaign at home. You can talk about us. You can spread the news. You can share our post on social media, on your social media. So it's many ways that you can help. You can pray for us, because we believe in the power of prayer also.
And we also have Britt here, who does teddies. She knits, she buys the teddies and puts clothes on them, knits them and sells them at markets in Sweden. And I think that's remarkable, a remarkable way of serving the organization. And yeah, I think that's fantastic.
And then we have a voice on the back.
Where's that little girl that started baking in Sweden and went out onto the street?
That's right. Yes. Yeah, Amina, she was baking and she started baking pepperkaka, which are gingerbread biscuits at Christmas time. And we also have Anthony here locally, little Anthony, who's been baking biscuits.
How old are they?
Well, Anthony is 6, 8 now. And I mean, how much have we raised through his baking? We got sort of a figure, I think. Almost 7,000 Rand from his baking. And he's a very special little boy with what do you call the Down syndrome, but he has. And so his mother has, and she keeps saying, do you still want to bake? And he says, yes, I still want to bake. She's thinking that he's lost interest by now, but he's still willing to bake. So there's very different, many ways of supporting and being part of the organization.
And I would just like to add that please don't underestimate the value of just talking about us, sharing our message. You know, we bump into and we meet the most amazing people through other people, and in a variety of different ways, in airports, in sharing a flight, a taxi, staying in a hotel, getting into a conversation with someone. So please don't underestimate just the power of talking about us, sharing what you've heard of us, and sharing us so that we can continue to do the work that we do.
One last question for me. Are you excited about the way forward?
For sure. Scary. Yeah. But let the others talk, because I might not be around for 30 years.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, it's not a closure or anything like that at all. It's a transformation. And you know, you think about something, the butterfly is transformed from something into something that is beautiful. And I think that we're in the process of doing that. I think that it is very exciting to have that, the transformation that's coming along, seeing the services move from what it is into something that's even bigger and better. So I'm excited about this.
Is a question from the audience and from the
Lydia. So I'm hearing we have someone from Ethiopia. Well, we know we've had Lebanon, right? So in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Wow.
Monica, can you share more of your positive highlights in the last 30 years?
Wow.
We had time.
Well, thinking about them in Ethiopia, that's one of them. That was really eating jira and all the things that we ate there. That was beautiful. So that was a real highlight. Yeah, I think traveling. I love the traveling. My husband wasn't so happy, but he's been very happy now that I've been home for the last 3 years. But I love the traveling. I love the meeting the people. I love sharing about the work, and that's a huge highlight for me about the aspect of and meeting the beautiful people, and I see people with such passion in Africa, and I love it when we do something and it's like we'll say something and you can see there's this aha moment, you know, especially like in Justice for Children, you know, that when we have that and it's like, oh no, is that what you mean? So I love that. So yeah, the highlights have been, we've taken in children as well. So we have our biological 3 children. And another highlight of that is that we took in a further 5 girls. So we actually are eight children in our family. And that's been a special highlight for me as well, learning how to navigate that. But I mean, I must say it's never an easy road, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And I think that's really what is. And then I think what I love to see, I don't know, this like because you know with COVID we weren't all able to be here for some time. And what I've really enjoyed is coming back and seeing the development of our special needs children. I cannot believe, because when these children came, they were like lying there, rubbing heads or just very little movement. And today they're walking with walkers. Today we were actually listening to them in the Brain Booster group, there they are saying 1, 2, 3 and going it and singing. It was the most amazing, that's such a highlight for me, where we've worked. We don't just want children to survive. We want them to thrive. And that is what we've seen with these special needs children, where they've really, they're even on the motorbikes and zooming away there trying to, and we were told they would never walk, or they were brought here to die. And just to see the incredible development of that has been wonderful.
Right. I think that of everything, I think that there are really some good highlights out of this. I think that there are many good highlights still to become that are yet to be written, that there are things that this is not over, the journey is not finished. So Monica, I have a final question for you. We've saved a very last one for you, as we said we would. So what advice would you give to someone that is entering this field and they are embarking on the start of their first 30 years? What advice would you give them?
There are a few things, but I think there's two things that I see as really, really important. And that is to make sure that you network, making sure that you know your community, that you understand your community, because a lot of people come into a community with a great idea and they think, this is what we need to do. And then it falls flat and they wonder why. And the second thing is to really look at prevention. Prevention is better than cure. Really looking at how can we work better, not removing children from families, but how can we really make it better for those children to be able to just be in those families. You know, I'll never forget, I mean, in all the years, there are hundreds of examples of children, no matter how much they've been beaten and broken and destroyed by their families. When you talk to them about, so where do you want to go? You know, like with your, I want to go home to my mommy. And although the mother might have been the perpetrator, it's still that desire to go home and be with the mother. And so we need to help the mothers. We need to help the fathers. We have a very broken society. The moral fiber in Africa, South Africa, all over is teetering on despair. And we need to be the hope. We need to bring hope in every situation that we are in part of. And that is what I believe, that when I walk out of any conversation with children, with families, I want to leave hope.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you very, very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that to our audience out there, to the audience here, to my colleagues, I want to say thank you, Monica, a special thank you to you. Micah, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Lebanon. We appreciate that.
The other places.
Ethiopia,
the
UK, Sweden. So we have quite a big reach, and that's quite exciting for us. I would like to just remind everybody that tomorrow is our AGM. It will be a Facebook live stream from starting at 12 o'clock. And you know, we progress into the week. On Saturday, there will be a church service, a celebration service on Saturday, starting at 6 p.m. That will also be a live stream that you can find on our Facebook page. The link is has been placed in the chat. So we would really strongly encourage you, please join us. Thank you for your time tonight.
And if you haven't joined tonight or can't join tomorrow, it will be on the website. We will download the videos from the meetings and YouTube. So it will be there. So even if you can't go onto Facebook, I know that there were some people that were disappointed with that. Unfortunately, the media that we have to use is what we have. And but it will be done, it will be able to be downloadable from our website.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.